It wasn't dominance, it was obsession. For over 1,000 days, Roman Reigns didn't just hold the championship, he held an entire company hostage. But behind the glory, behind the records, behind the chants of "acknowledge me," there's a truth WWE never told. This is the story of how one man's power became his prison. For 3 straight years, one name stood above everyone else in WWE. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who defeated every challenger, from legends to newcomers, and became the face of a billion-dollar empire. He main evented WrestleManias, unified championships, and shattered records that once seemed untouchable. He wasn't just the top guy, he was the show. But what the fans didn't see was the cost. Behind the cameras, behind the perfectly orchestrated entrances, was a man drowning in the weight of his own image. Because behind every king's crown, there's a shadow he can't escape. And Roman's shadow was fear. Fear of losing everything he'd built. This is the side of the tribal chief the cameras never showed. The control, the manipulation, the addiction to power that turned a hero into a tyrant. When Roman turned heel in 2020, the wrestling world exploded. After years of being booed, ridiculed, and rejected by the same crowd that once called him the chosen one, he finally embraced the darkness. He came back at SummerSlam. Stronger, colder, smarter. Next to him stood Paul Heyman, the mastermind who'd once guided Brock Lesnar to dominance. And just like that, Roman Reigns reinvented himself. Fans thought it was rebirth, but for Roman, it was addiction. Every victory fed something inside him. Something deeper than pride. The tribal chief wasn't born from greatness. He was born from rejection, from the noise of American crowds chanting, "You can't wrestle, and we don't want you." Now those same voices chanted, "Acknowledge me," and that acknowledgement became his oxygen. As the Bloodline formed, Roman found his kingdom and his army. The Usos pledged loyalty. Heyman became his prophet. And week after week, Roman ruled SmackDown like a throne room. But behind the swagger, the confidence, and the calm stare, a seed of obsession began to grow. He didn't just want to win matches. He wanted to control every moment, every narrative, every family member under his name. He wasn't fighting opponents. He was fighting the idea of losing control. And in WWE, control is everything. But the higher he climbed, the more that control started to slip through his hands. Power doesn't make you fearless. It makes you paranoid. And for Roman Reigns, paranoia became a lifestyle. Every time someone stepped up, Daniel Bryan, Edge, Cesaro, Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes. It wasn't just a title defense. It was personal. He couldn't afford to look weak. He couldn't risk the illusion of perfection cracking on national TV. So he controlled the narrative. He'd stand over fallen opponents, whispering, "Acknowledge me," because deep down, he needed to convince himself he still mattered. When you've been at the top too long, the fear isn't of losing matches. It's of being forgotten. Roman stopped trusting anyone. Not tag partners, not allies, not even his family. When Jimmy or Jay hesitated, Roman's eyes would shift, not with anger, but with fear, because in his mind, hesitation was betrayal, and betrayal meant losing everything. He started relying on Solo Sikoa, the youngest of the clan, loyal, quiet, obedient. But Solo wasn't a teammate. He was a tool, a human shield protecting Roman's empire. For the tribal chief, losing wasn't an option. It was betrayal. He manipulated outcomes, controlled family dinners, rewrote history in his own image. But the more he tightened his grip, the more his empire began to tremble. Fans saw dominance, but those who looked closer saw something else. A man suffocating under his own crown, and soon that crown would begin to crack. The Bloodline was never just a faction. It was a family empire built on loyalty, guilt, and fear. Roman played every string like a puppet master. He convinced Jey Uso that betrayal was sin. He convinced Jimmy that rebellion was weakness. And he convinced Solo that silence was loyalty. But the truth? He broke the ones who loved him, just to stay king. When Jey challenged him in 2020, fans saw a family feud. What they didn't see was emotional abuse disguised as leadership. Roman forced his cousin to say, "I quit," while tears streamed down his face. Not for victory, but for dominance. He humiliated his bloodline to prove superiority, and WWE audiences, especially in America, watched in disbelief as a family drama turned into a Greek tragedy. He wasn't fighting for gold anymore. He was fighting to keep control of his world, even if that world crumbled around him. When Jimmy returned from injury, his defiance was a spark. He saw what Roman had become. Not a leader, but a tyrant. Roman silenced him with manipulation, gaslighting disguised as family talk. You wouldn't even be here without me. It worked for a while. The brothers obeyed, but pressure builds and fear cracks. And when Jay finally stood against him, America watched a generational moment. A son of the Anoa'i family rising against its self-proclaimed god. That wasn't a storyline. It was symbolism. Because for years, Roman controlled his world through fear, and now that world was fighting back. But even then, he couldn't let go. Because letting go meant facing something far more terrifying than losing a title, facing himself. 1,000 days of power comes with a price, and for Roman, that price was peace. You could see it in his eyes. At press conferences, backstage promos, even fan footage. The man who once looked untouchable started looking exhausted, not physically, emotionally. He'd built a kingdom so high, even he couldn't breathe at the top. And for the first time in his career, the American crowd that once booed him began to question if he even wanted to be there. Cody Rhodes' rise at WrestleMania 39 became a mirror for Roman. A reminder of everything he'd lost while ruling. Cody fought with passion, heart, family pride, everything Roman once represented. And though Roman retained, something changed that night. It wasn't victory, it was survival. You could almost feel it, and the aura fading, the crown slipping. Backstage, whispers grew. When will Roman drop the titles? Online, fans debated, is he still the guy, or just a ghost of his own era? The bloodline began fracturing publicly. Jay walked away. Jimmy rebelled. Solo hesitated. And for the first time, Roman looked small. Not because of size, but because of silence. The dominance that once felt godlike now felt hollow. Because when everyone around you leaves, power means nothing. He wasn't fighting opponents anymore. He was fighting himself and losing. Picture it, Roman standing in the ring alone. No family, no Paul Heyman. Just the echo of "acknowledge me" bouncing off the walls, unanswered. He built an empire that no one could touch. But in the process, he became a prisoner of his own crown. Every great champion falls. Not because someone takes their throne, but because they forget why they built it. For Roman, the title stopped being a reward. It became a cage. A golden one, lined with paranoia, fear, and regret. He wanted acknowledgement from the world, but lost acknowledgement from himself. And that's the tragedy of the tribal chief. He was never the villain, he was the warning that power without purpose always destroys from within. So after 1,000 days, countless defenses, broken families, and fallen challengers, what does it all mean? Was Roman Reigns the greatest champion of the modern era, or was he just the loneliest? Maybe that's the real untold truth, that behind every legend is a man still searching for peace. Because once the cheers fade, the titles lose shine, and the crown grows heavy. All that's left is the question, was it greatness or madness? So tell me, WWE Universe, was Roman Reigns' reign a story of dominance or a story of obsession? Drop your thoughts below, and the best comment gets pinned.